everybody. Welcome along to the Event Industry News Podcast. A very good morning, afternoon or evening to our podcast followers, wherever and whenever you may be tuning into us from. Before we dive into today's podcast, we have an absolute shameless plug for you. The podcast is currently looking for a sponsor for 2018. If you're a company working within the events industry and you'd like to utilize the podcast as a way of reaching out to your own customers, please do get in touch. Since we launched the podcast, we have reached over 23,000 listeners worldwide. So potentially a great platform for somebody out there if they do want to get in touch with us. So let's dive straight in to today's episode and welcome our guest first of all. Bryan Cooney, CEO of Malo Events. Welcome to the Event Industry News Podcast.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. It's a new experience for me.
Well, new experiences, I think, is very much the subject of what we're going to be talking about today. Malo Events are the organisers of a portfolio of different events, one of which that we're going to be, I suppose, focusing on in some ways is an event called Kidtropolis, which earlier in January was announced that it would be moving or hosting one of its events at the NEC in April. So, Bryan, I suppose throwing it over to you to tell us a little bit about the Kidtropolis event, why it's gone to Birmingham, what it is, and a bit of the history around it.
Well, Kidtropolis has gone to the NEC first as what we call the NEC edition, because we do have a London edition, which is at XL in London, which was held traditionally for the last 2 years in October, on the October half term. But we're currently playing with it basically and coming up with the format that works. So it originally started with Simon Pilling and a great idea for a show called Toytopia, which then developed into Kidtropolis. And it's basically been rebooted a couple of times to try and find what works best. And what worked well in London the first year worked better the second year, but at the same time, it didn't generate the numbers of people through the door that we would have expected based on what it was, because it was a very good offering. So we've looked at the offering and said, right, what can we do with this to develop it? And all we're doing is developing, and it takes time. Maybe anybody that runs exhibitions, sometimes they're 5 years in before they get to the right format, and you're always tinkering around the edges anyway. So the NEC edition brings in a move to obviously Central Midlands, brings us to the National Event Centre for NEC, and them as a good partner who we're working with. And we have remodeled the offering so that parents basically want their children to be occupied, especially on a half term. So we've put a tagline for this in addition, which is basically Kidtropolis, come and play. So I take the view that if you're going to sell somebody a tin of beans, you put beans in it. If you're going to sell them a children's show, come and play. They expect when they come to come and play. Now, you can make it educational as you go along, but ideally they just want to play. And we've made a good start with our ticket sales. They are actually tracking substantially ahead of the track in London. And it's for many reasons, possibly because the audience is more receptive, but I think a lot of it is to do with the fact that once you're outside London, people pay more attention. If you're in London and you live there, on a holiday especially, there's so many different choices of places you could take your kids for the day, whereas outside of London, it's a little more sporadic. So equally, price point, we played with the price point. So instead of it being $15.50 or $17.50 or $19.50 and that kind of thing, we've literally gone to $9.99. So you can barely go to the movies for a 1.5 hour movie for $9.99. So if you can bring your children aged, then the target audience is sort of 3 to 12. If you can bring your children to a show that offers a perfect price entry point that occupies them for 4 hours because it's 2 sessions, one morning, one afternoon. You can change your audience twice during the day, and they are only. I have a 10-year-old, and I have a 14-year-old, and a 16-year-old, and a 21-year-old. So basically, I've been through it. Their attention span is 2 to 3 hours. So if you're able to work on that basis, $9.99 gives you a good entry point. But equally, I've always remember, I go to Disneyland, I go to Universal Studios, I go to Alton Towers, but they get to go on all the rides. Now, I could go on the rides, but I choose not to because most of the time I don't want to. But you're there because your children are there. So we even changed it that the second entry, so if dad wants to come with mom, or mom wants to come with dad, or grandmother wants to come with dad, whichever way around, the second entry is half price. So we've tinkered with the price point. We've We've tinkered with the offering overall, so the content is very much what can the children do when they get in and how much can they do in 4 hours. So we have a 200-foot assault course that's inflatable that they sort of fight their way through. And if anybody's interested, if you go to the website, you can actually click on a video and somebody GoPro'd their way through it. So you can see the experience and the children all look happy. And we also announced nearly everything for Kidtropolis London in one go, and then you're left with, for 3 months, everybody going, what else? So on this one, we've literally unveiled or unwrapped 3 things, and as we go through the next couple of weeks, we'll just announce more activities. And it seems to be that people are more receptive. We're literally moving along with great ticket sales, great response, great social media, and we've added in, I think, over 1,100 followers or likes, if we want to call them that, on Facebook in just the last 10 days.
And what you've just said there about announcing and planning to announce more content and things, the first parallel that draws to me is with something like a music festival that won't announce all of its lineup in one hit. It will sort of drip feed that over a period of time, because what that's doing is giving them more content, more opportunities to put interesting information up on their social media channels or their websites, more opportunities to maybe engage with a part of the audience that maybe wasn't so keen on the stuff that they've announced previously, but suddenly you've got their attention. Is that very much sort of the thinking behind doing that?
Exactly. Just give them something new, because you've nothing left to say on social if you've announced everything, because all you're doing is repeating the same message. So for us, we've got a really good social campaign where we're literally just going to announce content bit by bit. So we're planning to announce something this afternoon, I believe, depending on time permit, because we're all running around here with multiple shows. But for us, it really is about unwrapping the prize like a Kinder egg. You're just taking bit by bit and what's the next goodie that's inside it. And it does work, and it is working very well for us, and we're happy with it. Social is the key. Like right now, being honest, what have we spent on marketing? Nothing, because it's all social, it's all going well. Will we spend money on marketing? Absolutely, but we're targeting it, and we're hitting specific markets in specific timelines, because again, it's all about when do people buy tickets. Generally for children, you tend to think 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks out. You don't generally think far ahead. So that's why we're very, very surprised and encouraged by our ticket sales. But then some of it, if you're looking at it from an event industry point of view, is who are you working with and what are you doing? And obviously, we're not trying to plug every venue and stuff, but the NEC from their part, and with a sort of partnership with Ticket Factory and the venue, are putting some emphasis behind on their marketing and their support, and making sure that they're helping us and assisting us, which is important. If we don't have that, it doesn't make sense. And as you said, it's the NEC edition. Will there be another edition? Yes, there'll be a London edition. Will there be somewhere else? Absolutely. There's already another 2 locations planned, but it's based on, we're not going to announce anything. Maybe a week before Birmingham, we might say, oh, by the way, now we're coming too. But we want to make sure that we've got the right response to the format, which does include live shows as well. So we've announced a CBBS presenter called Andy Day, who's got his own band, and they play music for kids. And that's getting a great response. So that means that you're not only trying to have children play, but you're also entertaining them with live stage performances. With people they may know, or it just could be a magician, it could be anything. It's not rocket science what we're doing. It really isn't rocket science. And can other people try to copy it? Yes, they can. But like with Comic-Con, we found everybody tries to copy the Comic-Cons that we do or did in the UK, and they just can never get to the same success level, because the recipe may be there, but it's how you actually put the recipe together, as opposed to when do you put all the elements together. Just because you have a list doesn't mean it works.
And you say it's not rocket science, though, but I mean, from experience, I have 2 boys. They're 11 and they're 14 years old. So similarly, I've been through this. I've been through the school holidays and trying to entertain them, trying to work at the same time as get them off a PlayStation and get them outdoors and doing something, or get them out playing. And you say it's not rocket science, but children can be as discerning an audience as any adult. Especially now when they're subjected to so many different streams of entertainment and things that they can choose to engage with. So you say it's not rocket science, but I bet there's an awful lot of planning and thought and very, very fine details that go into the timings of the activities, the type of activities, even down to the layout of the venue itself, I would presume, as to where certain activities would be best suited based on a journey that people may take around the venue.
Yeah, absolutely. And the layout is key also from a point of view of how you control the lines, because not everybody can go on every feature at once. And if you don't have it laid out correctly and you haven't allowed for the lines, you haven't allowed for control, it can very quickly get into a free-for-all. So you have to plan it all through. Like, my market research is pretty easy. Like, the idea of a second adult at 50% off wasn't an idea of mine. It was an idea of Alicia in our office, because she has a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. And for her, she was saying, well, if I was a mom and I was going to go, I would want to bring my partner, but obviously we're paying money and it's an expensive day out for the family. So suddenly it became affordable, where 2 children and 1 adult and 1 half-price adult, the whole thing is for less than £40. So there is a research element. I also had my 10-year-old go around the last Kidtropolis. What did he enjoy doing? What did he enjoy playing? And he very much liked the physical activities, going through assault courses, roller skating, trampolining, crazy golf. It wasn't all about playing on computers, and we have got that element, and the press release did give that we would be having certain things that we haven't announced to the public. So we'll have a Roblox element, we'll have a Minecraft element, we'll have LAN networks set up, but that's not what everybody wants. And my 10-year-old was very, very interested in just the assault course and the trampolines. He said the roller skating was fun, but he really preferred the trampolines. So you just, by listening to children, you understand. And I take that as a broad view. If you just divert away from Kidtropolis for a second, we purchased Summer in the City as the largest YouTube festival of its kind in the UK. And I didn't quite understand the market. We had an element within MCM, which was VidFest, which was about YouTubers, but it was a very tentative step into that market. I took my 14-year-old daughter to Summer in the City. I'd contacted the organizers and said, hey, would you like to meet with me? Because I knew I was interested in the market. But when I seen how my 14-year-old navigated her way through the show and how she interacted with YouTubers, especially at meet and greets, when I seen her hug Dan and Phil, who are 2 big YouTubers, and the way she hugged them, I was talking to somebody, turned around and just seen her go, wow, around these guys and how happy she was. I knew I had to buy the show, because I knew that if she's like that, every other 14, 15-year-old teenager would be.
And if you want any sort of support on that from me, again, from personal experience, I can tell you that, you know, I've seen firsthand with 2 young lads who have varying different interests, whether it be music, football, various other sports, even stuff like Minecraft. You know, there are YouTubers who build up huge followings just with their Minecraft channels on YouTube. And it's something that it took me a while to understand, but because of that generation of children who have grown up in that whole world, you know, these people are, you know, the TV stars of the day.
They're the celebrities. They are the celebrities. My 10-year-old, just to get you there on that, he walks around the house and he's got different T-shirts. One of them is Daily Bumps, which is a internet family, and I can't remember the name of the family, but he watches it every day because they put out a video called Daily Bumps. So all he keeps saying to me is, have you invited Daily Bumps to Summer in the City? And yes, I have. Have they said yes yet? No, but I have tried, because he's my market research. When you have the same experience. And the primary thing about being an organizer for me of anything that's youthful is that I'm not young. I have a young mind as far as I'm concerned. I feel like I'm 18 years old. Anybody that knows me will tell you that. But that doesn't mean I know what the 18-year-old wants or the 20-year-old. So surrounding myself with people that do, showing our marketing and our social and our billboards and our advertising to young people and saying, what do you think? And you get a better perspective, because what I feel is right for us is not necessarily right overall. And that's part of the key, is not assuming you know everything and know best. I am right about 99% about everything, because that's just me. And it's one of those things where they say you're a narcissist if you think you're exceptional and you're whatever. I personally just think that I am exceptional for whatever reason. People think I'm exceptional because I do have a knack to be right about a lot of things, but I also accept that I need other people's opinions. And that's why I surround myself with a small group of people whose opinions matter, and they all give me the truth. And if they don't like my advertising, they'll say it's horrible. So, and my children will tell me as well. So yeah, there is you are right. It isn't rocket science in one way, but it is in another way.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it, and we will make sure that we come around to talking about the multiple show aspect and the other brands that you've got under Malo Events. But coming back to Kidtropolis, and particularly on the adult side of things, whilst the content is very much, or is focused on the children, come and play, and it's something that the parents will take the children to do, inevitably you will have parents who are perhaps stood there twiddling their thumbs on their phones, because it's focused on the children. What elements are you building into the event to keep the parents occupied? What's going to be on offer for them?
Well, the thing with the live shows is it's something the parents can take part with the children, because they can go and see the live shows. And you'd be probably surprised by the amount of people on social media who are talking about Andy Day, as an example, as the CBBS presenter. You've got a lot of moms going, I can't wait to meet him, because he's not just appearing on the stage, he will be meeting and greeting people. And the other element of Kidtropolis is that when you pay your price, nearly everything you get when you get inside is included. Right. Obviously it won't include food, and it won't include if you want to buy toys or something, but the overall element is for free, so the parents will enjoy it. It's more about, yes, having a family time. So we also get parents who bring the 7-year-old, but they have a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, and what are they going to do? So we're building into Kidtropolis a soft play and a messy play area for small children. But right next to it, we're having the NEC provide a coffee shop location with seating, so that the mom or the dad or whatever can buy a coffee, sit at a table next to the soft play and watch their children right in front of them, so that they can literally socialize while they watch their children enjoy. And a lot of the elements, like the assault course, a parent can go through with their child if they want to. So we're trying as where we can to say family, family, family. And we are actually bringing in something on the website, I think it's next week, where we're stamping all of the activities with a recommended age range, so that when the parent turns up, they're not going, well, I bought my 3-year-old and he really wanted to go on, but now you're saying it's 5 to 7 or 5 to 11. So we're trying to give them as much information as in advance. But you are right. Getting the parents as occupied as possible is good. And I think if you have a lot of interactive activities, we'll have character meets, so parents can meet the characters with their children, as well as go and purchase things. It is a factor, and we are working on it, but I think the live shows are the best example, that the children can attend the live shows with their parents.
And you've actually, but you've already answered a question that I had noted down, which was relating to what people get for the admission price, because so often a particular bugbear amongst parents is taking the children to something, paying an admission price, and then finding out that you've got to pay out further money for certain activities and things when you're going in. I think everybody understands that if they want to buy lunch, if they want to buy a drink, they want to buy a coffee, a souvenir, that will be an additional price. But things like the activities, the 200-foot adventure play area, the roller skating, etc., all of this is included in the admission price.
All of it, including the Minecraft, Roblox areas, the various other elements of what we haven't announced. But it's a case of, there's lots of things, but the whole idea is that the only restriction on any of it is going to be dependent on the age. That's going to be it. There's no charge for the additional activities. There's always going to be the man wanting to sell you a balloon. There's always going to be somebody wanting to sell you a toy. But that's just the same as going to Disneyland or Universal Studios or Knott's Berry Farm or Alton Towers or Chessington, just to mention them all so they don't feel left out. But ultimately, the whole thing is $9.99. You pay your $9.99 and you come in and you get what you get. And as I said, you can't all go on the ride simultaneously, but if we plan it, so we're currently planning how many people can be in line preparing to go on to an activity, how many can be on it. So with the roller skating, 50 children can be roller skating and 50 children can be being prepped. So as the 50 come off, you've prepped another 50 to go on. But we have to work out all those timings to go, how many people can we occupy at any one time? The problem is if every one of them want to be on one thing, it's not going to happen, and parents have to accept that. Mm-hmm. Like if I go to Universal Studios Hollywood, they have the Harry Potter ride. The average waiting time on that, because it's so popular, the very large ride, is somewhere between 70 to 120 minutes. Now, you paid your ticket in, but you've got to wait 70 to 120 minutes.
Yeah.
And you accept it when you go to parks, but parents need to come to an event, any event where there's activities, and have an open mind about the queuing time. We're hoping to keep average times between 15 and 30 minutes so that they can get to enjoy as much as possible. We're also planning ahead of the show. As the numbers come through, we'll reassess. If we hit maximum capacity on every single day, we'll actually look, and we have a backup list now of, can we fit in some more features? Which ones can we add? What will we add? We'll add in more features that we won't even advertise. There's literally a week before, just to ensure we have additional capacity if we hit those high numbers.
And one thing I'm curious to ask, and it ties in with not just Kidtropolis, but the drone show that you mentioned that you guys operate, and also Summer in the City with the YouTubers. These are markets that if you'd have said 10, 15 years ago, or whenever YouTube was released, there's going to be a dedicated show for people who love watching YouTube. And there's going to be a dedicated show for people who are drone enthusiasts. You know, people probably would have looked at you like you had two heads. The fact is, these are huge markets now that have huge followings, so they perfectly warrant a show. Have you constantly got your ears to the ground about whatever new technologies or new markets are, and entertainment that people are just getting into now that you think maybe in 5, 6, 7 years' time could present opportunities for events like this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the key element about me. I've been described as a sort of psychopathic entrepreneur. Other people will say a serial entrepreneur. I never viewed myself that way. I just viewed it as I was earning a living. When I co-founded the MCM shows with Paul Miley, it was not within mind to create this whole thing that would dominate the UK and be the third largest group of Comic-Cons in the world. It was very much just to run a show to make a little bit of money and make a living. But now I'm constantly looking at, like with that, I was looking at what was the US doing 10 years or 5 years before anybody else was, and adapting MCM to what the Americans were doing. And there's an old adage that one event company used, which I won't name, but their motto is copy with pride. There's nothing that says copying is a bad thing. You look at what the US market's doing and you move it. And there was an entrepreneur also on a video we're seeing recently on a podcast that said, just because somebody's doing something in Chicago that's working, doesn't mean you can't do it in New York, so long as they don't own the rights. You can just take the format or the idea and just because somebody else has done it doesn't mean you can't do it. It's like a coffee shop. Just because there's a Starbucks doesn't mean there can't be a Costa. And you just have to look at the ideas. I photograph something every day, something. It'll be an idea from a billboard, a magazine, and something I see in a coffee shop, something I see on my way to work, and I'll have an idea. The problem is that I can't do all those ideas. Elon Musk basically said not so long ago, his problem is saying the word no. And he doesn't say no very often, and that leaves him in a mess because he's doing too many things. So I've had to learn post the sale of MCM that I can only do so much, and how much do I want to do, because technically I should have retired. But I'm a kind of person that has to work. I still come into work at 7:30 every morning, and I get home at 5, 6 when I literally shouldn't be working. Well, not shouldn't, I just don't have to. But I love what I do, and I love creating. So as I'm creating, I'm looking for an exit strategy from each show. Who can I leave with this baby so I can move on to the new, it's shiny moment? And I'm constantly looking for that new thing. So you're right. I have ideas for shows for next year and the year after, but should I perhaps do a couple of them now in case somebody else thinks of it? Yes. But if I do that, will I do them right? Or will I just be doing them because I'm afraid somebody else will do them? And then I'll make a mess of it. And I've done that a couple of times in my past. I've ran at a show and then made a mess of it. So I'd rather take my time.
Some people may say, just playing devil's advocate here, that that's a very, very sort of calculated, almost ruthless business ideal to have, where you're looking for the future project and where maybe you can sell an event or move an event onto somebody else, into the hands of somebody else, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're putting your heart and soul into it. I suppose there's another train of thought that says that if you have got that long-term strategy and that end game, that you're going to make the event as best as it possibly can be, so that when the time does come to hand it over to new people and new custodians, it's in the best shape possible for everybody.
That's exactly the point. It's a case of, I work a lot with actors with the Comic-Con side of the business, and there's always this argument about, well, the actors, you're having to pay money to go to events to see actors and stuff. And I point out to everybody at that point that they call it show business. They don't call it show, they call it show business. It is a business, and events are a business, and you can't apologize for creating events that make money. But you can do it in a way that allows you to feel good about it. And I always take away from my thing, what is the customer experience? Did I have a good time? And if I had a good time, did everybody else have a good time? And at the Summer in the City YouTube Festival, the show runs very, very well. Dave and Tom, who are the co-founders, do a great job. But I wander around the floor, and from time to time, I see a child cry. When I say a child, a young teen crying, or parents hugging them, or whatever. And I will just say hi to the parents and go, "Oh, they're crying with happiness," or whatever. And they'll go, "Yes, they just got to meet such and such," or they didn't make it through the ballot to do a meet and greet to meet the person they wanted to meet. And I can't help everybody. Yeah. I can't help everybody, but in that moment, I will think, right, where is that YouTuber? Where is that influencer right now? How can I make that person's visit spectacular? And I will literally find the YouTuber, take this person, take them to the Google or Facebook green room, and bring them to an extra experience. And I can't do that for everybody, but I do it for a few people. But the goal is to try and make everybody happy. So if I create an event that makes a little bit of money, but ultimately makes me feel that I made an experience for people, then I will make that experience for people as best it can be, because it's I also live by a thing of how much is enough. So if you're doing well, why do more? And equally, I'm not saying I abandon shows, but I'm focusing on Kidtropolis right now because it needs a new format, a new life. I'll get it to a point where I feel that it's the best show I can make it, and it's in the best hands of the best team, and then I will be focusing on something else. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that I don't care about it. It doesn't mean I don't keep an eye on it. It just means that somebody else can use my expertise somewhere else. And I've been asked by a company at the moment to advise on a show in a very large country, which I can't tell you about, because I'm the expert in that particular type of show. So I'm going to help them make the show as best it can be. But it is business, and it's not necessarily about creating businesses to sell. It's about creating businesses to make people happy, make me happy, give me something to do, but equally make money. Because the world goes around by people like me creating businesses and employing people. If I don't employ the people I employ, they don't pay their rent or their mortgages. If they don't buy stuff in the shops, the guy in Tesco's or whatever who stacks the shelf doesn't have a job. And there is an argument about it literally is the circle of life. And I'm really weird like that, and people don't get me.
But that extends as well to the suppliers, to the contractors, to the people who, by running shows like this, you need to come in and deliver all of these elements that we've spoken about on today's podcast that will also be making a living and employing people off the back of shows and events like this being born, being built, being run, and, you know, ultimately cementing themselves in certain marketplaces. So everything has a knock-on effect.
It does, and if you look at the amount of suppliers that you use over the years and work out how much money you spend with them and where they invested in growing their businesses in other directions because they had you as a customer, it's substantial. The millions and millions and millions, it ripples down the whole effect. It's like Comic-Con in London is probably worth, I'd say say 5 million on sales at the show itself, but we did an analysis once where the value of spend at the show was 15 million pounds, with another 5 million of additional sales after the show for exhibitors. What is it worth to the community on hotels, travel, parking, internet, catering? As far as I'm aware, we still hold the record for the most noodles ever eaten. And basically it does work itself out that way, where you can just figure it out, and it does make sense. And I am part of that. So the suppliers I had previously, I'm trying to work with the venues, because shows or exhibitions in themselves are cyclical. They do come along, and some of them have a lifespan, like a drone show. How long will a drone show have a lifespan for? The gadget show, how long was its lifespan? The clothes show in its original format that ran for 27 years. It had to change because the world changes. And if it doesn't, shows come and shows go. And a lot of the exhibition companies when I say copy with pride, they do exactly that. They look for who's took the step to create a new show, go into a new market, created a new market, and they go, "Oh, that's a market, let's enter it." I'd prefer to be the person that creates the new stuff and be flattered if people follow.
And on that note, we bring today's chat to a close, Bryan. I'm conscious that you've off air today. You've got all sorts of things that you've got going on at the moment, and all sorts of places to be. So the first thing we should do, on behalf of all our podcast followers, watchers, and listeners, is thank you for your time today, because it's been a great chat, and a bit of an insight into some of the stuff that you're going to be up to with Malo Events, with the various projects, and particularly Kidtropolis. As I said, it was announced at the start of January that Kidtropolis NEC edition would run, I think it's between the 6th and the 8th of April at the NEC, which is round about the kids' Easter holiday times. I know that in the UK that the holiday times can vary and fluctuate a little bit, but having looked at those dates before we came on air today, I can see that does pretty much fall into most of the UK Easter holiday periods, either in the beginning or the middle or the end of it. So yeah, keep your eyes out for that. Head over to the Malo Events and the Kidtropolis website for more information. And thank you very much, Bryan, for coming on the show today and talking to us about it.
Well, thank you for giving me the time. I appreciate it.
We're going to wrap up as always by saying don't forget to stay up to date with all of the latest news from eventindustrynews.com by downloading the Event Industry News app, available for all the major mobile devices. As I said at the top of the show, the podcast is going to be going out weekly as normal, but once a month we're going to be doing a live Facebook podcast, not always with Ted, unfortunately, and I don't think we have the capacity to bleep out some of the content that could be born from Ted, but we will be doing a Facebook live podcast on the last Wednesday of each month. So subscribe to all the various news feeds from Event Industry News to find out what's happening there. But as we're pushed for time, we're going to wrap up today's episode. Thanks again to Bryan. My name is James Dickson. Thanks for joining the podcast, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.